Hello everyone, Ryan from Addicted to Nature, and in this aquascaping tutorial we're going to go over the design concepts I had in mind and how I used hardscape and plant placement to achieve this look, which hopefully by now you've realized I was trying to recreate a dense forest. This is a 5-gallon low-tech tank without CO2 injection, approximately 1.5 months old, and if you want to see how this was created or want my complete plant list, head over to the description below and I have all the information there. So let's get started. It's important to understand where the eye will focus on initially. In most aquascapes, we tend to focus on the lighted portions first. My personal theory is that through evolution, we as humans find safety and comfort in lighted areas, and that is where we will seek to go first. So when designing an aquascape, we can use this to our advantage when recreating highlights, as well as fixing up the negative spaces where there aren't any hardscape or plants, which can be done intentionally or by accident. This is a photo taken during the day. The white sand reflects the light and leads the eye to the negative spaces, which I've circled here. Since these are the points where the eyes will naturally look, the negative space is very powerful. And in the lighted path to the back, we have the red circle. You can see this driftwood branch has fallen and cut the space in half, which is undesirable as it breaks the space and draws less attention to what is supposed to be an endpoint in the scape. Tilting the branch up fixes this problem. I've gone ahead and overexposed this photo so that you can see the details better. Now let's talk about the blue circle. This is, well, an accident. The canopy of the forest is supposed to be dense and covered by vegetation like the other side here. Now let's take a closer look. This is a shot of the backside of the aquarium with the same space highlighted for orientation. The filter outflow pushes floating vegetation in this direction, and the stem plants I've planted are also crooked as a result. To fix this and remove the accidental negative space, I should add more floaters and stem plants here, so the curvature of the plants because of the water flow will be in the correct place. Now let's talk about the edges of the aquarium. I find them ugly and detrimental to the illusion of depth and natural look that I like, so I usually cover them with hardscape or plants so they are almost completely indistinguishable. This is my 10-gallon tank as another example, and we can barely see the silicone in the back and sides of the aquarium. In a forest aquascape, plant selection is very important. We need to choose a variety of plants to mimic the biodiversity of a forest, both in the canopy as well as the shrubs, vines, and small ground cover that grow. Plant selection will also be impacted by the size and growth conditions of your tank, CO2 injection, and light source. Again, this is a non-CO2 5-gallon low-tech tank, and we must choose plants that will be fine growing this way. I've gone ahead and split this tank in half for you. In nature, we won't find shrubs at the top of the trees, which I will refer to as the canopy, just as how we won't find the leaves of giant trees at ground level, so we must have distinct plants for each section. Let's start with the canopy. The driftwood has given us the eye-guiding lines curving towards my endpoint. To add detail and finish those lines, I mainly use Christmas moss and salvinia floating plants to cover the top of the aquarium. I also really enjoy the look and feel of floating plants here. Their roots offer an ancient feel to the woods and also block out some of the light in random patterns so that the bottom of the scape is illuminated much like a real forest. You'll also notice the Christmas moss is attached in a way that only the top and back sides of the branches are covered in relation to the front of the aquarium. This way I won't obstruct the view of the driftwood even after a few months of growing. So what about the base? This is where the most diversity of plants should be. I choose plants that give a variety of leaf shape and color, all of which do not grow tall and quote-unquote invade the territory of the Christmas moss and salvinia. They also have relatively low care requirements. That way it is clear which plants are the leaves of the trees and which are just shrubs growing on the forest floor. I have Anubias nana petite as one of my main shrubs. This is by far my most favorite plant in the aquarium hobby with thick rubbery leaves and thick green roots attached to the wood, all of which give an ancient grown-in feel to my aquarium. Now the S. repens, or Stargine repens, is a short green stem plant, a bit lighter in shade to the Anubias. It is usually planted into the substrate, unlike Anubias, but I chose to do something unique in this setup, growing them like an epiphyte wedged between rocks and wood. It thrives in CO2-enriched setups, requiring trimming every 2 weeks, but in this low-tech setup, it keeps to itself and grows about as fast as the Anubias. You can see that there is some algae on all of these plants. I placed this tank by the window to give them some sunlight and to boost plant growth. The algae is a side effect. I like the small green spot algae because it further enhances the ancient forest trope, and besides, I can always remove the algae later with a blackout, algae eaters, and water changes. It isn't something worth worrying over, and for now the added sunlight will benefit my plants more than the effect of removing all the algae. I also added more epiphytes. Java fern and flame moss give highlights to the bottom levels, and the best vining plant in the hobby, the Hydrocaudal tripartita, creates interesting discoveries for the viewer to make. As this vine grows longer, I plan to wrap them around the driftwood and create a transition between the canopy plants and ground cover. You may notice it isn't as well grown in as my 10-gallon high-tech tank, and that's to be expected. Since setup, I moved this tank next to the window and switched the light from a regular LED desk lamp to a clip-on Aquarium light for about the same cost. I just didn't like the way the desk lamp was illuminating the scape, and this clip-on light threw better shadows. There wasn't any noticeable difference between plant growth. Lastly, my next plans for this scape include allowing the plants to grow and fill in more, and also to transplant some carpeting Monte Carlo once I have grown enough in my other tank. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope I've managed to show you some aspects of designing my aquascape, and I'll see you in the next one.